Welcome back to Question Everything. It's been a while. I have not been consistent, but I'm so glad that you're here watching with me right now today. So, as you know, I'm your host, Gregory Rutledge, and today we're going to be talking with the founder of Missugram and author of Live Your Legacy, Patty Freudenberg. I believe I'm saying that right. She is helping people not just mourn, not just rebuild, not just survive, but live on with meaning. And I just saw her pop on backstage. But before I bring her up, I want to tell you to scan that QR code right there. I can't even, it's there. You see it in this corner. Scan that QR code and pre-order your book From Waiter to Greater. It is available on Amazon, the ebook, and there's a bunch of bonuses. But enough with all that. We'll get to that at the end. Let's bring Patty up on stage so that she can talk to us about this amazing platform that she's built. Patty, hello.
Hello.
It's Patty from New
Thank you,
York.
first of all. You beat me to it. You beat me to it. Thank you, Gregory. Thank you for the invitation to come and talk about it. It's a pleasure to meet you again. I know we met at the PNC about 2 years ago now. I think that was or last year, rather. Last year. I'm sorry, that last year in North Carolina. And here we are again. So, so thank you very much for having me on the show.
I'm glad you're here. You strike me as a person that takes action because we just had one phone call a couple weeks ago and you took immediate action. It was beautiful just to watch. Like, I told you what you could do to get unstuck and you did it. And it was just like that. I love people that take action. So, we're going to talk today to the viewer that is trying to get through that darkest valley and still create light. And I even have my signature rain cloud glasses on with the raindrops. They're tickling my nose.
So apropos. So apropos.
So, I miss you, Graham. I just saw on LinkedIn that you were featured on the cover of, what was that, Millennium Magazine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the from the who's who in America. Yeah, and they come out once a year, and I'm very, very honored to be
Wow.
featured there. It's an honor. When they reached out to me and on LinkedIn, and we had a few interviews, I was totally like, wow. And why was I excited? Well, it's because of the exposure. Because I
Mm,
provide a public service, and it's really important that people know about it. And like
mm,
I like to say this, I'm not for everybody, but I'm for
mm,
somebody. And
mm.
exposure will land in the right place. And that's what it's about. It's about, living on purpose for purpose.
Oh,
So yeah.
yes. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Living on purpose for a purpose. That's beautiful. I think we
Thank
need
you.
a world full of people living on purpose for a purpose.
Well, yeah, I wish I could take all the credit for that one. However, it comes from the great goats, right? And Dr. Miles Monroe, I was introduced to Dr. Miles Monroe through a few people that I ended up uh, working with on different platforms, and that's how I met you through the PNC. And I
Mm,
was introduced to Dr. Miles Monroe, and I'll just give a shout out to Delano A. Johnson and Monique Lisa. They were the ones that really, opened that door to recognize this great teachings of Dr. Miles. And I read Pursuit of Purpose, right? Pursuit of Purpose,
mm,
or Pursuit to Purpose,
mm.
Pursuit of Purpose, whatever. You get my drift.
I
That's the
got you.
book he wrote, and it was so powerful that I started just using that tagline because there's truth there.
Mm,
I am here on purpose for purpose, and
mm.
just like he explains in that book, you know, if it doesn't serve a purpose, then what is it even worth? Everything
Yeah.
really should serve a purpose, whether it's a microphone or what you're doing in life. Everything has a purpose. So
Yeah.
I'm here to help, help, not fix,
Yeah.
guide, not make you do anything. Just show
Mm,
you the way to recovery, because
mm,
grief is gonna strike, and usually when you least expect it. So
mm,
I just provide resources and tools that work. Again, not for everybody, but for somebody. So the fact that they're proven to work, I'm just going to continue on that path to share those tools.
I appreciate that because there's people I've met, and you have those personalities in life. I happen to have one of those magnetic personalities where people will come to me, complete strangers, and trauma dump. They'll just drop it all on me. And while I appreciate that trust that I'm a safe person you can leave it with because it will stay with me, especially if it's deep. It's heavy sometimes, and I got this from my friend Francine. Grief, we were never meant to experience grief. So when we experience grief, we don't just grieve what we lost in that moment. We grieve every loss we've ever had. And if for someone like me, who's like the youngest of all of my family members, who's seen a lot of family members go or been in recovery, and you see a lot of addicts that start to recover, you start to see the sunshine in their eyes again, and then they relapse, and some don't make it. 15 years of that, you see a lot of people go. Now, there's a reason I said all that, and it just left me. So I'm going to get into the first question. Thank you for guiding people through
well,
it.
You were talking about like when people, no, like, and also like when people come to you with that load, right? It is heavy. It is heavy. And I don't know. I also, you were talking about being a magnet, and I believe like with me, I was giving people the grace and space. They both kind of like go hand in hand. If you give space, you give grace. And I'm talking about emotional space, right? Not physical space necessarily, emotional space. And having a background of being a beautician for 33 and a half years, that half matters. I don't care what anybody says. But 33 and a half years of having a brick and mortar, still standing, but I'm not an owner anymore. I walked away to give full time to this. But before this was actually a thing, me doing end of life coaching or Miss You Graham at all, when I recognized that while I was making people look beautiful on the outside, while I was getting them ready to go to bury their loved one, I gave them the space and grace to talk about how they feel. And they just did anyway. I didn't say, oh, come talk about it. They just felt comfortable in my chair while I was, trying to make them look good on the outside. And I saw the transformation. You see it on somebody's face. People could, fake it to the make it. But at the end of the day, you see the eyes, you see the expressions. And when I saw the transformation, that was the beginning of this new journey, this new chapter of my life. And I always loved what I did, but it was time to now serve this purpose.
Yeah, that's good. That was going to be my first question. Like, you made this whole platform around grief, and Instagram came after you for it. That's wild. We'll talk about that one.
I'm not allowed to disclose details. However, and this is before Facebook bought over Insta or vice versa. No, Facebook, whichever it was. That's like irrelevant to me. The fact that little old me was minding my business, serving a purpose, and I go and apply for United States, trademark and patent office mark for the operation system. And they tried to stop me. They actually opposed it when it went on the Gazette, which is what happens after you wait like 6 months with no information. And no matter who you are, you could be a billionaire. There's still this like grace period if you go to apply for a patent, that there's no way you can know which way it's going. Is it going good? Is it going? You find out it's either passed or not passed. And if it passes, and I don't want to get too off course, but just a little entrepreneurial tutorial here for a second. Fun fact: if you do pass to the next stage, it goes on this Gazette, and then anybody has 30 days to oppose it. The fact that they found me and opposed me, and then I had a lawyer up, right? I had a lawyer up. But guess what? I beat them, and I own the operation system. And now it is a public service available for free. And of course, I would love to, feed my family. So we're working on some, bells and whistles. But the baseline is always going to be free, because you shouldn't have to pay to memorialize somebody you love. And
Right.
it is a social media, and we live in a social media world. And again, it's giving grace and space for people to post, not just because it's a anniversary, not just because it just happened, not just because it's a birthday in heaven, because they feel like it, without feeling vulnerable, without being diluted. And but it did get their attention. And I guess because it's gram, but gram means to convey a message via recording or writing and such. And there was telegram, flipagram. So give me a break, Graham. But then I was so like stubborn about being like upset that they tried to do that to little old me, as I say, that I didn't want to use their platform for the first 5 years. I refused to use their platform. No, 4 years. For the first 4 years, I did not use Facebook or Insta, because soon after they merged with Facebook. So I did not use them. So I was not existing on Facebook and Insta. And I realized I'm cutting my nose to spite my face. Let it go. Get back on there. And yeah. But I've had my share of, hurdles. Even on Facebook, my account got hacked. This is my third account. Again, starting from ground zero, hoping that people believe it's really me. Then I lost my name 2 times already. It's, but I'm not going away. That's the bottom line. You're going to have to bury me, and I'm still not going to go away.
Right. That's a different kind of grief, isn't it? Losing
Yes.
losing a Facebook page.
That's
Listen,
grief. Let me tell
you're
you something. That's grief.
yeah. You were talking about like cutting off your nose to spite your face with not using Instagram. That sounds like me with pickleball when it first came out. I had such a big resentment. I finally got over it, but we're not gonna. I digress. Let's get into this. So you built a whole platform around grief, but before the books, before the brand, before the coaching, before all of this stuff you're doing now, who were you in your rawest grief moment? Like what? I know you said it was when they were in your chair and they would let out to you, but was there a grief moment for you, or
All
was
right.
this
So
just
I'm
a,
going to
a
tell you
hard?
something. Hindsight is always 2020, right? And these little cliche quotes, the bottom line, there's truth, right? There's truth to all these little things. So I'm gonna be vulnerable and listen. This is the truth. So if you like it or not, that's not my problem. But this is
Bring
the
it.
truth.
Bring
In
it.
hindsight, okay, yes, the discovery of being the one to, I do feel like I was summoned by God, like, because I often said, why me? But it wouldn't go away. I talked about it for about 7 years while I kept doing hair before I even decided to do anything about it. And then my daughter was sick and tired of me talking about there should be a platform for this. She said, why don't you make an app? And this is way before I decided to become an end of life coach. And I said to my daughter, because I did not exist on social, I did not ever go on social. I didn't want to do it. I had no interest. I was lucky if I texted my kids. And my daughter said, Mommy, create an app. And I said to her, what's an app? And she's like, Mom, Facebook is an app. I go, oh, social media is considered an app. Oh, okay. And then I went to my
Wow.
phone and I went, hey, Google, how do you make an app? Little did I know what I was getting myself into. But there she's answering me. Oh gee, I better be careful. But I'm gonna take you way back. I'm gonna take you even further. In hindsight, after neck deep into this journey, which I love, and it is my purpose and passion. I got to tell you, all of a sudden, my life started like flashing and going back. And my first death experience was when I was 4. No, 3 actually. 3. I was almost 4, but I was 3. It was May. It was May of 1974, but I was still 3. And I'll remember like it's yesterday. And I found out my grandma died. And as my father was telling me in the car, right, and we were on the highway on the Northern State Boulevard, on Northern State Parkway, more or less Northern State Parkway here in New York. And we were in the car. And back in 1974, kids didn't need seatbelts. So little old Patty was standing in the back seat, holding the headrest of the passenger side, and it was me and my dad. and he's doing, high speed on the parkway. And he says, your grandma died, my maternal grandma, which I loved and adored, and I still have good memories. I know my sister's like, how do you remember? I can't help it, but I do. I remember playing with her. I remember her making me French fries. I remember watching The Wizard of Oz with her. I don't know. I remember playing games with me, hand games. So I was close to her, and he told me she died. And I had believe it or not, I had no grief. I had this sense of peace. And I am a visionary, and I know you shared that with me too. You're more of a visual person, and that's one of my. Everybody has a strength, and my strength is visionary. And I saw her in my imagination, if you will, rise up, and it was this peace. And a few minutes after that, the door opened on the parkway where my father had to pull over and close the door. And little old Patty, who probably weighed 50 pounds soaking wet, if that, could have flew out. But it was almost like I had that moment of vision. I had this sense of peace. And all of a sudden the door opened, almost like she was, like her spirit came through, right? That's how I perceive it. Nobody's going to change my mind. That's in my knower. Only I know the truth to that. But that, looking back, I'm like, wow, that was the beginning of my end of life coaching, death doula, grievance, legacy. Like that was the beginning. And, and then flash forward, I'm not going to get through all my life right now, but I just think it's funny that was like a telltale sign, because my sister didn't have any of that experience at all,
Yeah.
and I had this sense of peace. And of course, I wish I could have her in my life, but for some reason, I had a sense of peace. And not that I don't mourn, I do mourn. I mean, my mom died just barely a year ago. Of course, I mourn. I'm human. My God, I bleed. But for some reason, I'm able to find myself to recovery, like, I get to recovery on the quicker than ladder side.
Yeah. No, that's a gift, because, I mean, death isn't something that happens to life. It's something that happens in life. And if you can't get over, I mean, I hate this. That sounds so bad.
Well, do you ever really, though? That's the thing.
If you can't get over it enough to celebrate their life, be grateful for the time you got to spend with that person, and, honor who they were by like, there's a piece of them that was left with you. So how do you carry that on, right?
Because enough is a feast. Because enough is a feast. And that's, you just nailed it. That's it. Like, enough is a feast. Whatever enough is, what it was, because we can't figure it all. We're never going to figure out the mystery of life. We could have, assumptions at best, right? Assumptions at best. You could only figure out what feels right to you, what feels true to you, and you still could even change your mind. But the idea is, there's no way any human can have all the answers to life. The mystery. No. So when you find yourself in a place of despair, you got to go macro. You got to go big, because when you go big, you come to some grip, some realization, because it's the truth. It's a mystery. It's a mystery. And when you could surrender to that, then there is some peace. Grief comes, trust me. When I least expect it, I'll start crying. Well, I'll give you an example. I looked on the calendar. I was just looking to see when the school break was, and I saw my mom's birthday. It was like turning on a flash, like a light switch. Bah! I started crying. And then I realized, okay, that kind of snuck up on me. Just good old grief. Good old grief sneaks up on you. And then I'm like, okay, I recognize it. And then I'm like, you know what? I miss my mom, but I don't want to be in that space of like missing her with heartache. So you know what? Let me just go back to something I could embrace, and I'll go back to last year's birthday, and that's in my treasure chest, and nobody could take that away because it happened already. And I'll just go back to a state of appreciation, and slowly but surely go up the level of vibration, which is, a appreciation. I always say Captain Obvious, love, joy. Everybody knows that's a high vibration, but appreciation is a sneaky one because you don't realize that that's one of the highest states of vibration, according to
Mm.
Stanford University and also Harvard University and a whole bunch of other universities. You could Google it yourself. The highest vibration study to mankind is joy, love, but appreciation is right there, brother and sister. And grief is no different than fear, powerlessness, depression, So yeah, I know I could go. Listen, when you're in your purpose and you have passion about it, you're gonna have to get the quirk and shut me up.
Now I'm listening. This is good. So you talk about legacy a lot, and I want to know, like, what does it really mean to live your legacy while you're still here, especially when you're navigating loss, right? Like loss, we tend to think of loss as just death, but like I could lose my keys, lose my phone, lose anything, like a job, right? Something that I was attached to that I am no longer attached to, that I no longer have, like, what is there's something like when we're dealing with powerlessness, or like, how to put this. So self will is characterized
Well, I
by
know what you're
things.
saying. I know what you're saying. It's like, it's a security blanket, right? Let's just,
Yes,
just for a lack of better words, right?
but
It's
we
the sense of
never.
security. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. And the thing I'm trying to say, like, long story short, because I was gonna bring the backstory in, but it doesn't matter. We
Yeah, it does.
suffer.
Tell me.
We suffer because, like, it's fear of either not getting something we want or losing something we think we own, right? And like when we grieve, it's because we're either not getting what we want, which is more time with that thing, more security with that blanket, or we think we own it. We think it was ours. We think we were entitled to it, and so we can't let go of it. That's been my observation. Because when I'm grieving, it's because I don't want to let go.
But Gregory, I'm going to ask you something. Like, and again, enough is a feast, right?
Hmm.
Is there ever enough time to say goodbye forever? There isn't. and and again, that's going again. I consider that, going macro, because go big or go home. You you got to look at the big picture. Like, some people, there was a couple of people that recently come to my grievance chat room, and they were feeling some sort of way because their family member was in a hospice situation, so they knew it was going to happen sooner than later, right? Nobody knows when exactly, but they knew it was going to happen, and they felt some sort of way because they didn't have a chance to say goodbye. But my point is there ever enough time to say everything you want to say?
No, no,
Like, I don't think so, right? I will debate that. Like, I don't think so, because we're not wired up that way. But
no. We'll
again,
forget.
right, right, and to be honest, this is so what's the choice? Like, either sit in sorrow and frustration, right, and void and lack mindset, right, or give it up to the greatness of the mystery, right? Because it's never going to be enough time. But when I think of such things, when I think of such things, I also think of, besides that I'm spiritual, I love to remind people, like an annoying little gnat, that science has proven that everything is made out of energy. And
Mm,
in fact, if we stick our finger in a socket, we're going to light up, right?
yeah.
we're energy, and our soul is untangible. So when our
Mm,
flesh, decays and dies, from disease or degeneration or, tragedy, because you only die three different ways, right? Disease, degeneration, or tragedy. We are all
mm,
going to have to transition someday. But when we're faced with mortality, you could either be scared and stuck and paralyzed and have the lowest vibration, which is
mm,
fear, powerlessness, because when you're faced with mortality, you can face powerlessness, or
yeah.
you could give it up I know that let it go. Again, these cliche sayings, but there's so much truth to it. In fact, it's a chapter in my book. Wonderful let goes. Give it up, let it go, beyond your understanding. And again, not to be like all scripture, I have a non-denominational space, but the good old book called the Bible, there is so much really, really wisdom, smart metaphors, if you will, right? You don't even have to believe in Jesus. I do, right? That it makes my soul feel good. But let's just, for argument's sake, you don't believe in Jesus. Just the metaphors themselves, just the teachings themselves are filled with wisdom.
Yeah.
Be surpass understanding. Let yourself surpass them. Stop trying to understand everything.
Yeah.
Give it up. Own it that you can't understand everything. And this is when we can now take that step to let go and let God, and hopefully reach appreciation. And there's a lot of things in the middle.
Yeah.
Bargaining, anger. Those are actually higher vibrations. So you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Acceptance, you're getting there. But appreciation, then you're in alignment with the divine. And you
Yeah.
can have conversation with your loved one. I believe, and again, I'm a little, I'm a little extravagant when it comes to these notions, but there are testimonies that say this works, and I'm one of them. So try it out for size. And again, if it's not for you, then go to the next store. Maybe something else will suit you. But these are notions that helped me, helped others, and I want to bring it to the table.
Listen, I've seen it in person, and I just want to address Rebecca. Hey, Rebecca, it's good to see you, girl. Rebecca was on episode 8, 7, 6, somewhere around there of this podcast,
I
like
thought she looked familiar.
back in the day.
There you go.
And
Okay.
it's about time for a new one. But she said this is a heavy topic, but an important topic to discuss. And there's something about so you mentioned the good book and the beliefs. Now, you don't have to be religious to read the Bible. As a matter of fact, the Bible's not a book about religion. It's a book about kingdom.
Glad
Right?
you said that. Glad you
And
said that.
their principles, precepts, promises, there's all sorts of metaphors and conditional statements that even if you just read it through the lens of, if you do this, then this will happen. If you don't do this,
Cause
this
and
will
effect.
happen, right?
Cause and effect.
If you just read it that way. Now, I'm glad you brought up the medium. That's what I was going to say. I've seen it in person. I have a friend that's a medium. She had a near-death experience. We've been friends for like 20-something years, and I've watched her struggle because she hears from the other side. And she can't just go around telling people that, right? Or she thought she couldn't. She thought she couldn't go around telling people that because they'd think she was crazy. But like, when you can see not just the physical realm, but the people that are around and they're telling you to tell their loved ones stuff, like, you're going to try to drown that out with some kind of drugs or alcohol. And that was her journey for the longest. But she came over here one day for counseling and coaching, and ended up speaking to my neighbor's grandfather. I think either my grandma or my aunt, she had described my house that I grew up in New York to a T.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And I had never talked to her about that house. And just to hear and see like the people in the room breaking down, like there's no way she could have known that. I believe it. Now,
Yeah.
whether it's demons, a lot of religious people will be like, you're summoning demons.
Well, yeah, you're opening portals. Well, I just want to clarify something. When I say I encourage you talking to them, I mean like when you see a bird, hi mom, like that, not like in transcending or clairvoyant sort of a way. Although I do believe that too, though, because I've also had my experiences, but I don't promote that because of the naysayers, and I feel like, you know what, I don't need to go down there. I don't need to go that way. There's enough people doing that. I don't need to do that. I'm not really interested in that, and that doesn't seem to be my calling. But when I say talk to your loved one, when you're feeling frustrated and you want to make that phone call and your mom's not around, because it's happened to me, guess
Mm,
what? You're still allowed to talk out loud to the universe.
mm,
Just perhaps she hears you. You don't know if
mm,
she does, but doesn't it feel good to your heart and soul that she just might? She just
mm,
might. So it feels good. So if I'm saying, like, if something happens now, instead of just keeping it bottled up and crying about it, I just say, "Hey, mom, this is what happened," and I just say it to the stars, the sky, the universe, the bird, the butterfly,
mm.
and that in that way, I recommend just trying it out for size. And that's why my book is called subtitled. And I don't really talk about that piece too much, because this book is supposed to be like an easy to digest book. It's in big font. So, if you don't have your granny glasses handy, you could still read it. It's about 40 pages. It's true. It's about 40 pages. There's 10 pages of just the titles, and the titles are meant to captivate you. So,
Mm,
the titles are Mind Over Matter, Unfolding Your Grief, Pausing in the Now, be still, and being still is a big thing. Morning for Morning,
mm,
trying new routines, Time and State, because what state of mind are you in? And I always think, like, your mind is like a vehicle. It's like it's a
mm,
vehicle. So what state of mind are you in? And time, where are you in time? Are you back there? Are you present? Are you in the future? Where are
mm,
divinity and beyond? That's a little bit of what we talked about before. Breakthrough breakdowns, wonderful let goes, slow yet steadily, reflect and repeat. And reflect and repeat is very important, because when you make new habits, right, you are and you're consistent about it, you turn effort into excellence.
mm,
So your circumstances then have a chance to change. And again,
mm,
it's not about that you're never going to have grief and you're never going to feel sad again. That's not realistic. It's about recovery. Can you
mm.
recover? And the first page or so, first page, page and a half, I say, if you're feeling like this is too much for you, go seek medical help. That's why we have doctors and
Mm.
therapists. Sometimes you're not ready for this book. This book
Right.
is for when you are ready for recovery. You're like, you know what? I'm ready to recover. I'm ready. But you do have to trust the process. Again, another cliche statement. But Gregory,
Mm.
come on. How much truth is in that statement? Trust the process. Could you talk to me, please?
Trust the process. Listen, that is what I'm in the middle of doing right now. Like, yes, I published a book. Yes, I've made it to the heights without a degree, and that's what the book is about, and all this amazing stuff. But that's not my reality right now. I'm unemployed. I have a business, but it's not making much money right now. And I have no drive to do anything. But every time I try to move, every time I try to do, something breaks, something doesn't work, and I hear God saying, "Be still and know that I am God." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that sounds great. Another cliche, right? But it's a God cliche. But what do I do? Right? Be still, but what do I do? Be still. But
Mm-hmm.
like that's not telling me what to do. So
Yep.
trusting the
Yep.
process is exactly what my book helps people to do. From Waiter to Greater isn't just the story of how I went from 213 an hour to $250,000 a year without a degree. That's a nice to have. But if you don't have your heart, mind, and soul in alignment, your mind, body, and spirit in alignment, when you get there, you'll end up living check to check with $250,000 a year coming in. And so
That's right.
it's not just
That's
how to
right.
get there, but it's how to stay there when you get there, so you don't fall from the pedestal like I did. Trusting the
Exactly.
process is all that you can do. Like I just saw Bella was in the back in the studio, and I meant to like ask her if she wanted to come in.
Yay.
Linda, I don't know if you want to text her real quick and see if she actually wanted to come on stage. I don't know if that's what she meant to do.
Yeah.
Um, but would love to have a third person in the chat. So I want to open it up for some questions to anyone watching. I know that grief is a heavy topic and it's all over the place, and there's no specific answer for it. And I just want to know, is there anything that someone wants to know about grief or that someone's dealing with? Like, grief doesn't just, like we were talking about, it's not just for death, right? It's for loss of a job, it's for loss. Like, I had an adoption in 2013. That's a different kind of grief. That's that's a grief where, you can't see them, but they can see
Mhm.
you if they choose, and you can still see their. Oh, she's listening intently. Thanks for the invitation, but she's listening intently. She's not coming on
Okay.
stage. All right, perfect.
So Gregory, let me just interject here for a second.
Come on, girl.
So
This is your
with
show.
with this, yeah. So this is the thing, and this is what I do. I offer, tools for the emotional toolbox, right? The emotional toolbox, because like what I like to do is remind you of, not remind you, help you, guide you to, elevate your vibration for recovery, right?
Hmm.
And the emotional toolbox, the tool that I offer is the flashlight, right? The
Hmm.
flashlight. And I call it God's flashlight. You could call it the Creator's flashlight, whatever speaks to you. It brings love, it brings light, and it brings legacy. And why the
Hmm.
flashlight? First of all, specifically the flashlight, because you could only see X amount of feet in front of you,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And again, trusting that you'll get to the next 10 feet, number one.
Hmm.
Number two, so you could also put it on you because you're still in the land of the living. And
Hmm.
if you really think about it, yes, you might be in despair that your loved one is not present anymore in this physical plane. We know that, the soul transitions. We know there's an afterlife of some sort, of some degree, even if it's just molecules in the ether, okay? But they don't get destroyed, okay? However, you can't convince me that if you loved your loved one, they most likely loved you just the same back. I
Hmm.
can't imagine them wanting to see you in suffrage. Okay, I just can't imagine that. So this is where I help you focus, redirect your attention, because and again, I didn't come up with the saying, but where attention goes, energy flows. So you're still in the land of the living. So live a life to be remembered. Talk about it. And
Hmm.
also not forgetting your loved one. Carry the torch too. I love to say my name, say my name. In fact, when I do any public speaking, like I just recently did over this weekend, that's how I start off. Say my name, say my name. And I'm not necessarily saying my name. Tell me your loved one's name. How does it feel when you say their name? When I say my mom, Alicia, it feels so good. She's alive again just by saying her name. Talk about, even if it's her good muffins,
Hmm.
talk about her nice shoes that she always loved to wear, you know, talk about, her eyeball when you did something wrong. I don't know, but just keep her alive in those beautiful, tender memories instead of the focus on lack. And
Hmm.
then also focus on living a life to be remembered, because we are faced with mortality. Hey, I'm privileged to still be in the land of the living. And despite the pain of missing you, talk about it. Let's talk about, well, you know what? This is what I'm doing with my life, or this is what I love. I love music, Gregory, or I love painting. It doesn't always have to be, oh, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm making my own business. It's not about that. That's not what legacy is. Legacy is just living a life to be remembered. I can't imagine, the company slogan is everybody wants to be remembered, because before it was even like, I even had the patent before I even became an end of life coach. And I was trying to explain to my friends and family what I was doing, because they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Listen, everybody wants to be remembered.
Yeah.
I can't imagine not wanting to be remembered. In fact, depression is people that feel not seen and not heard, and I
Hmm.
want to avoid that state of mind. So that's
Yeah.
what legacy is about to me. And thank
Man.
you, Bella, for coming and tuning in.
Yes. This is so good. So much good stuff in here. Where focus goes, energy flows. And it's a slippery slope, right? Because like, where is the cutoff from the energy of saying their name and just acknowledging them and remembering the good, and then like spiraling into, oh, but they're gone, they're not here with me anymore, right? Uh, that's another story for another day. I mean, I guess it's all.
Well, I'll give you
I want
some.
to say,
I'll give you some tricks. I'll give you some tricks of the trade. I'll give you some tricks of the trade. So, and I learned this, and again, these are not Patty's conclusions. These are Patty's studies and research. Okay, through
mm,
all different means. But I'll give you one specifically. I listen to a lot of Neville Goddard, who
mm,
is an oldie philosopher, theologist. They taught. I believe they still teaches studies in Harvard, for example, on theology and philosophy. However, the idea is, and Esther Hicks, also Abraham Hicks,
oh, I
and
love
also this.
Abraham.
But okay, so you know where I'm going with this.
I
So
know
she,
I know Neville too. We follow a lot of the same people.
right, right, okay, so they're goats, right? They're goats because they also do parables to the good word and all that great
Hmm.
stuff. So what I learned, a great technique that I teach, because there is truth to it and there are results that have been proven to work. Again, maybe not for everybody, because not everybody's in the right state of mind or the same state of mind. Let me correct that. Just because I'm
Mm,
not for you
mm,
doesn't mean you're not in the right state of mind.
right,
You're
right.
just, this is just not your style, and that's perfectly respectable. However, when you find yourself in a momentum, right, and
Mm,
that's not working, right? These
yeah.
thoughts and this and all this is happening, and it's a velocity that's not working. That's why I talk about macro. You got to go big. You got to
Mm,
put your focus now on something that's totally macro,
eagle
beyond
eye
you,
view.
big. Go to the stars, go to the moon, go to the world, go to the, go to the country, go to the building. Just bigger than you, bigger than you.
Mm,
You got to take your focus off the detail, because then you'll stop that momentum, because an object in motion stays in motion, right? Newton's third law of motion,
mm,
right? And every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So
reaction.
when
Yeah.
we're having a reaction that's not working for us, right, and we're creating more velocity, that's the red flag to, what, think of. And this is when we have to use brain muscle. You have to go to the brain gym, the gym
Mm,
that nobody wants to go to because the weights are heavy. But this is where you're going to find, recovery. This is when you're going to have a nice, healthy brain, but it's going to take effort. But
mm.
when you are consistent in your efforts, then you create new habits and you turn into excellence. And I've said a lot, so sorry that I'm like a fire hose right now. But again, I get very passionate.
That's a good thing. What would the world look like if we had more passionate people in it? Just saying. Uh, the
Interesting.
the mind
Interesting.
gym. One of the most important things I've heard over this last year, from my mentor, was thinking is the hardest thing that most people never do, or thinking is the hardest work that most people never do. And it's true. They, Everything around us is literally designed so we don't have to think. Like, I've been a UX designer for the last 5 years, and my job, actually 6 years now, my job is to make it so that the experience feels like it was effortless for you to make your decision. So from the time you think about getting on Facebook to post to the time you make the post, and all of the things, from the time you think about doing a task, whatever that is on an app, to the time you complete that task, that is all designed for you to have to put in the minimal thought. And we know when there's an app that has not thought through that experience for us, because that's the ones
Forget
we
about
talk
it.
about, right? She said, forget about it.
Forget about it. Look, I
I
got my
love
little
it.
Italian. I'm Spanish, but my little Italian. Forget about it. Yeah.
So my last question for you tonight, and then I'll move on to a new traditional question I have for the show. How do you hold space for both celebration and sadness in your work? And like, what have you learned about the power of ritual, remembrance, and even humor in healing?
Oh, I definitely have a lot of humor. I do have a lot of humor because it's not funny, but
Mm.
humor is a relief. It's like a relief
Yes.
valve, right? It really is. It's a
Yeah.
relief valve. In fact, they've done studies, and I've read into this. I didn't do research per se, but I've read about it. And supposedly, the best humor is timing and tragedy. Just think of like maybe tripping while you're holding a carton of eggs. Timing and tragedy make the best humor. But humor in itself is like this grand old mystery. Like, where's that funny bone come from? Right. But it's just such a great thing, right? It's so cool. It's like
Yeah.
it's the coolest thing since sliced bread. I just humor rocks. So I definitely am playful. And then, I always say, pardon me when, maybe I'm going a little hard, but I want to get your attention. I want to also redirect you. So when I feel like you're sinking, I'm going to do something that's going to, catch your attention. I was the class clown, do you see
Me
that?
too. Yeah.
That's why
Yes.
we vibe. That's why
But
we vibe. But we also need contrast to finish answering your question. That
yeah.
again, part of the mysteries of life, which is quite interesting, that we live in a dual world. That's why when you said, what would a world look like? I mean, in Wonderland, it would be beautiful for rainbows and butterflies, and I think that's heaven, right? For me, that means heaven. But here on Earth, we live in a dual world, and for whatever reason, it's made that way. There's contrast, and when we find ourselves in a space of the contrast of lack and despair and pain and hurt, then we know even more what we don't want and what we do want, right? And it's
Yeah.
about how do we redirect our focus again, because our tension, you know that's there, but let's pivot and turn there, so yeah, I hope I made some sense, because I could go into a whole coaching session, but I'm not going to do that. But I just want to give you some insight on where I'm coming from. So I hope I made myself clear.
No, that's very clear. It's impossible for anything one-sided to exist. That's why the world is dual, because there has to be negative polarity for the positive. There has to be east for west. There has to be north for south. Like there always has to be two sides, because that's just how things are. And the sooner we can accept that, right? The faster we can reframe from, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened, to, oh, this may be the best thing that ever happened, right? It's all a matter of perspective, and perspective has the power to change everything, literally, without anything having to change, or without everything having to change. Just the perspective. Like the perspective is the only thing. Like the words I'm using to describe my situation can literally make my situation or break it. So thank
It's
you for
letting a
sharing.
miracle happen. It
Yeah.
really is. When you
Ooh.
change
Ooh.
your lens and look it through from a different lens. Dr. Wayne Dyer had a
Oh,
great
my
quote. You
favorite.
like him too, right? I know we're in the
I
same
love
lane
Dane.
here.
Yes.
And remember when he said, "Well, what's the difference between a weed and a flower?" And he
Mm.
said, "An opinion." Same thing, right? Same thing. Yeah, perspective is key. That's right. Bella's
Listen,
chiming
that
in. That's right.
that brings me back to a neighbor I had when I lived in this trailer park a few years back. When I first, actually, it's been a decade now. Me and my wife have been together for 10 years, but we lived in this trailer park, and this lady like catty corner to us. Like she had some weeds start coming up. So what does she do? She starts watering and tending to her garden of weeds, and like trims them, and like buys like
Loves
flowers
them.
to put in between and feeds them, and like they grew up real big, and it was beautiful, but they were all weeds. And you know, from her perspective, she had the most beautiful garden ever. And she tended to it and she cared for it, and there was not much to do. Weeds grow, right?
Yep.
So she just, kind of kept it contained. And it really did look beautiful. She put a little guard wall up around it. She put like
Aw,
fans and
love
stuff. But
it.
she was an older lady. And like, if that's what she loved to do, then cool, right?
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
is perspective is key.
Yeah,
Boom.
yeah. And he
Uh,
also said another good one by Wayne Dyer. When you change, oh, boom, I like that. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Right? Same thing we're
yes.
talking about here. Just another way to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of this story. He was talking about this lady that came to see him, and she was asking what the people were like in the city he lived in. And he said, huh, what are the people like in the city you live in? And she's like, well, you know, they're negative. They talk about you behind your back. You know, people aren't friendly. They like she had all these negative things to say. And he's like, yeah, it's pretty much what you'll see here. And so another lady came to him and asked him about where he lived. And he said, well, what's it like where you live? And she's like, oh, the people are so nice. They're lovely. Neighbors are great. Everyone's friendly. Everyone loves you. He's like, yeah, people are pretty much the same here. And the moral of the story was, if that's what you're seeing where you are, it doesn't matter where you are because that's your perspective. That's how you see the world. So no
Right.
matter where I put you, it's like taking all the wealth in the world and dividing it evenly between everyone.
Yep.
In 2 weeks, all of the people that were broke will be broke again, and all the people that have money will have money again. Why? Because of their perspective, because of their lens that they look at the world through, right? It's so crazy.
That's right. That's right.
So I want to address the user right now. If someone's listening right now and they're feeling stuck in grief, questioning if they'll ever feel whole again, what do you want them to hear in their soul?
If they're experiencing grief and they feel like they'll never feel whole again, is that the question?
Yes. Like, what do you want them to hear, feel in their soul?
Nobody could undo what's been done. And that's really the best you can do. Just like with prayer, I always, a lot of people say, and this is a new notion, and I'm not the one who even said it the first time I ever heard. I've heard this, but I really resonate with this. People say, well, at least I'll pray, or the least we could do is pray. No, the best you could do is prayer, right? So that I'm just mentioning that just to make a point. The best you could do is go to your treasure chest, and you should, again, it's that perspective, right? Like you had those moments that you missed the person for future moments. And I understand that and respect that. And again, I understand my grief. I would love to see my mother again. However, what makes me feel whole is that nobody could ever take away what's been done already. The memories that were made already. They're untangible. They're not touchable, and they're forever mine. They're forever mine. And that makes me feel whole and complete. And that's what I, wish for somebody to be able to understand that, but, I come from a place where I do St. Francis prayer. Of course I want to be understood, but I practice, St. Francis prayer. Let me understand rather than be understood. Let me love rather than be loved. Let me give rather than receive. Let me pardon rather than be pardoned. But in this case, I really would hope, for the sake of your question, is that they can at least entertain that notion that those beautiful memories are forever yours, and they should fill you up, Buttercup. There you go. I'm a little silly there. But they should fill you up, Buttercup. They really should, because if you think about it, is there ever enough time? I want to be forever with my children. I can't even imagine having to say goodbye to them, or my husband, or my father, or even my dog. I don't want to say goodbye to any of them. I love everybody so much. I don't want to say goodbye, but that day will come for all of us, but I don't want to think about such things that are going to make me sad. So I rather focus on the things that were done already. You can't unbake a cake, Gregory. You can't unbake a cake.
Nope. Can't turn it back into eggs and flour and whatever else goes into a cake. I'm not a baker, obviously. So, one more thing. Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your heart and soul. Two more things, actually. So, because this show is built on connection, and most people that are on this show have either met me personally or, someone's referred them to be on the show. And gosh, it needs to be consistent, but that's another story. I'm getting there. who are two people you know who've walked through fire, faced the truth, and came out with something worth saying that you think need to be on Question Everything. You don't have to
I
say
mean,
it
my
here
friend
and now.
Bella, she's a rock star.
Okay. Okay.
I, she's a rock star. She's so busy, but I hope she can make some time to come on in and give some fire to your channel.
Mm.
I know your Facebook's on fire. I know you said your YouTube was kind of like, feeling a little like, FOMO. So let's bring some fire back, and yeah, I would love to bring Bella. But there's a few other good friends that I think would
Mm.
benefit coming here, and then I'll let you know on the back channel. But being that Bella came on and said hello, I'm just gonna give her a shout out from the top of the mountain.
Yeah, I love that. I would love to meet Bella. Bella, connect with me on Facebook. And actually anywhere you like to connect. Linktree/Gregory Rutledge, linktr.ee/Gregory Rutledge, or the official GWiz on all platforms. Or, you'll connect with me somehow. Gregory Rutledge. And then the other thing, where can people find you?
Well, I'll tell you, pretty much everywhere. All kidding aside, like all the major platforms. MissUGraham.com is my website. However, if you just type in Miss U Graham, MISS hyphen the letter U hyphen the letter GRAM, I own the page on Google. So pick your platform,
Mm.
but I own the page, which, did take a lot of work. I'm in my 8th year and I'm just now on ground level. I invite you to check out the app. It's a free public service. Again, we're building and expanding, but it is a starting point. So go ahead and post a memorial of your loved one. Again, it's a native app, so it's a quick connect. My book is on Amazon, so if you want to check out the book, again, easy read. It's also on Kindle, but I recommend this because again, this is even like, you want to take a bath and read it in the bath. That's the kind of book. It's almost like I set it up. If you see the size of it too, almost like a magazine feel, not
Mhm.
something that feels like, oh God, I'm taking a class and I don't want to do the work. This is easy to digest. It's just to get your mind in a good state, and that's what it's for. And it is for when you are ready to recover. And again, the first year is very delicate, but I do recommend it. Probably like even a month into the grief. I think if you are strong-minded and strong-willed, and again, everybody's different. Some people are very fragile. Some people need medical attention first, so don't even go near this book. You only are the person that knows what you want and need. You're the captain of your ship, right? So
Yeah.
with that being said, if you're ready to recover, definitely get this book. I think it really will suit you well. Again, because it's easy peasy lemon squeezy. It really is. Maybe doing the work isn't, but the read
what's
is.
what's the book called?
Live Your Legacy, and the subtitle is A New Spin on Mourning. I have the link if you want me to put it in the chat, but here I have the Amazon link if you want me to put it in the chat.
I was looking it up. So, there it is. I'm going to put it
You
in the
got it?
chat for you. Yes.
Thank you.
Paperback or Kindle.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I
absolutely.
said, I recommend the paperback because it's like, it's easy, it's flexible, it's like a magazine, and I like that I didn't put lines in the journal pages because what if you want to draw, right? What if
Mm.
you want to write? I doodle, I doodle. For instance, look at this is my mouse pad. See, that's all doodles. See my mouse
Wow.
pad? I'm a doodler. So that's why I like the freestyle and I left those pages blank, for that reason. And I always say,
Wow.
you be you, boo, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's the there's something to creativity, in the beginning God created. You could just stop there. And if you
Hmm.
didn't know what he wanted you to do, you know that he wanted you to create. Like, we were made in the image of a creator so that we could create. So get out there and get her book. Get out there and get my book. Start creating the life that you want to live because you are in control. And if you be bold and courageous, and do everything that you do with passion, I promise you will have a life that you love. Patty, thank you so much for tuning in. Stick around. I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It's been a while since I've showed up live or at all on social media, post here and there. But, you know, after working with Patty for Grief, I think I'm ready to come back.
Yeah.
You dropped some gems that really made me think, like, perspective. There is always another way out. There's always a better way to look at something, and I've just not been using my best resource.
It's reclaiming your story. It's reclaiming your story.
That part. Well, hopefully, as I journey to this next greater, wherever that is, whatever that looks like, I can bring some people with me this time, so we can all go from greater to greater.
That's right.
Again, be bold and courageous. Do everything that you do with passion. I promise you'll have a life that you love. We'll see you in the next episode, whenever that is.
Thank you.
Thank you.